thank you for coming. Recognize a lot of faces here. And Anthony, are you here? You're muted. Anthony, there we go.
Hey guys, how are you? Welcome everyone. So yeah, welcome to our LA Family multifamily meetup. Today we have two sections. So the first half of our meeting today is going to be talking about generally where the market is, this current state of the market, where we're at. A lot of you joined our meeting at the beginning of the year where we gave our prediction for what was going to happen this year. So now that we're just about halfway through the year, we're going to look at those numbers and see how we did, and then do a forecast of what we anticipate the market to be through the rest of the year. We're also going to touch on how the eviction moratorium and foreclosure moratorium is currently affecting the real estate market and what that looks like at this point. Then the second half of our meeting today, Will Tiao, our commercial director, will take over, and we'll have an opportunity for anyone to share any properties that they'd like to. Will's going to give us an update on what's happening with the multifamily market and what's looking like there. And if anyone has anything else they'd like to bring up or share at that time, you're able to do so. So, Will, anything else you wanted to add?
No, I'm super excited to hear your presentation because as someone who mostly does multifamily and manages hundreds of units, the eviction moratoriums have definitely had an effect on the multifamily market. So I'm very curious to hear about what you're seeing on the macro level.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just wanted to say hello to Mr. Al D'Amico. I just noticed who's on. I got a little distracted. He really helped get me started in real estate almost 20 years ago. So 2002, I got my license, and he's a big mogul in Palos Verdes area. So if you ever need someone in Palos Verdes, search Al D'Amico. He'll take care of you for sure. But yeah, well, let's just jump right into it. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to start with, let's see which one. We're going to start with the general state of the California housing market and see how that's going. So is that shared? We're good? Well, okay.
Looking good.
Perfect. All right, so at the beginning of the year, we really talked about what this year would look like was really based upon what was going to happen with COVID, especially locally. December, January, we were really going through some rough times and we weren't sure what was going to happen next. COVID was worse in LA County than it was anywhere else in the country. And luckily those numbers calmed down. We got through that second spike and we're really, really doing well now. I just heard that LA County overall is, I think, the lowest county for COVID cases for a major city anywhere in the US. So we're doing really, really well. And overall, the state's doing really well as well. So because of that, our economy is starting to get back to normal and we're starting to move forward. And that absolutely is going to have effect on what happens with the housing market moving forward. So again, a little recap if you did this, but why in the world was the housing market so strong over last year, and how did we have a market where home values actually went up last year and are continuing to go up now, and the amount of properties selling is actually going up in a time that we've had a recession? Well, this graph is just really explaining to all of us on the amount of people who lost their jobs and what their income level was. So the small dark blue area that you see right here, those are people who lost their jobs who are making over 100,000. The lighter blue area, those are people who lost their jobs over 100,000. So, unfortunately, there was quite a few jobs that were lost, but the jobs that were lost were lower income jobs. And overall, especially for, LA County, those are not particularly the majority of the home buyers that we are seeing purchasing property. So the market was not affected in a way that it may have been in other parts of the country. Another driving factor of the market that's still happening is interest rates. Interest rates are still amazingly low. We had our, low point just probably 2 months ago, and then they went up a little, and I feel like they're going back down. Regardless, they're around 3%. They're still at almost all-time lows. They're extremely low, and they're really, really driving the market forward. Mortgage applications are continuing to go up. More and more people are trying to get approved for a mortgage to buy a property, whether it's multifamily, an investment property, or single family homes. Those are continuing to go up. Now, this is just showing us how we ended up in December of last year, what actually happened. Prices, believe it or not, in California, they were up 16%. Home values went up. It was the first time our median home price was over $700,000 for the state. Unsold inventory went down. So, we were at 1.3 months of inventory on the market. Median days on the market was 11 days. I think now I just heard it's like 3 is the average, which has never, ever happened in California history for having days on the market be that short. So, we ended the year up really strong overall. And, so this is showing California prices. We've had, they're continuing to go up, right? And this is going through the end of the year, and we're continuing to see that through this year, that home values are still going up. And again, it's because mortgage rates are still really low. We have such a shortage of supply. It's still pushing prices up to all-time highs. Now, when is this going to peak out? When is it going to go down? That's something we can discuss after, absolutely. But hopefully some of these graphs will kind of show you where we're going and where we think we're going to be going. This was kind of interesting. CAR did a survey with home buyers and home sellers to see, during COVID, have you as a realtor had clients that were holding back from selling because of COVID? And of course, last year we see those numbers were high, 80% were yes. Now that's down to about 40%, and those numbers are continuing to drop. So we really feel that people are starting to become more and more comfortable selling their houses now that we're slowly getting out of COVID. So we're hoping that more inventory will come on the market as the year goes on, especially after things open up as close as we can back to normal sometime later in June. Is kind of the idea of what we're hearing with the state and Los Angeles. So we'll see how that goes, but it's a good sign that people are feeling more comfortable selling properties at this point. So it was pretty cool last year. We saw more first-time home buyers enter the market than we've had in a long time. It was one of the top 3 years since 2005. Almost 40% of the people who were in the market were first-time home buyers. And again, part of this reason was because interest rates were at an all-time low, and housing was actually more affordable last year. And towards that, I'd say second half of 2020, first quarter of this year, were more affordable than they've been in the last 3 to 4 years. Even though prices were higher, it was still more affordable because interest rates were so much lower. So the amount of money that someone would be paying towards their mortgage was less, the beginning of this year than it was over the last 4 years, even though prices were up. But we'll see where that trend is kind of changing now. First-time buyers right now have much more skin in the game. You can see that, here 2020, 33% of first-time home buyers are putting 20% down. That's pretty amazing. Also, when you look at the amount of people who are putting 0 down compared to 2006, 40% of people were buying with 0 down. That was me when I bought in 2006. I think I put 0 or 2% down. And now it's, about 10%. But if you look towards the bottom, the ones that weren't highlighted, these are also ones that really stood out to me. The amount of people who are buying right now with an ARM is only about 2.3%. Back in 2006, it was 38. And that was, a big reason why we had the Great Recession. This kind of shows, again, where we're heading, that there's a lot less problems in the mortgage market overall for single family homes. The second half, we'll talk about multifamily, but a lot less ARMs are in the market right now. So there's a lot more stability in the properties that people are purchasing right now. And we'll find out there's a lot more equity as well. So if you look at this one, this is talking about cash out refis. So in 2005, 6, 7, kind of at the peak, you know, the people who were doing refis and getting cash out was like 80 to 90% of the people were taking money out. Right now, we're just not seeing that. You know, it's less than half of what it was before. So people are still taking out cash, but it's a lot less. You know, we're finding the people who are taking out cash, a lot of them are putting it back into the home and they're building ADUs, or they're, you know, upgrading a kitchen. I had an appraiser talk to me this week, and he's like, it's really hard right now for me to find comps of properties that are old and not rehabbed and not in, you know, in good condition. That most of the people who are selling have done work to their property over the last year, and there's just not a lot of comps of, you know, older properties that need some rehab work. So estimates on foreclosures, you know, what's happening with foreclosures right now? People who are delinquent, it's only about 5.5%. And out of those people, when you look at the second half here, what happened to the people who actually went into forbearance? So 25% of the people added to the end of their loan. A lot of those people, 15.4%, have already paid it back. 28% of them have never missed a payment. And only about 13% of the people that were in forbearance actually are delinquent still without a plan. So there's not a whole lot of people who are delinquent, who are in a position where their property could be foreclosed on and they're about ready to flood the market. There's just not a lot of those properties that are out there right now. And we'll see a lot more graphs on this in detail. So again, this is showing us delinquencies. They're already improving and they continue to be going down even through, you know, the first quarter of this year. Every month they're going down. More and more people are getting out of forbearance, and more people are getting out of the delinquency. So this is very good signs. A lot of people have equity in their homes and they're doing really, really well. When we compare January 2009 to kind of what's happening now, as far as REOs and typical discount that you would get if you were to purchase an REO property, it was about 60%. I mean, it was really insane. The baseline is that about typical REO share of the market is about 8% and maybe a 10% discount. If you remember from the first, when we did this original meeting, we had a worst case scenario that was right here in the middle. And the worst case scenario was about 30%. Whereas like, it's possible that we could have 30% of the market be REOs at a 30% discount, but we're moving more towards this best case scenario where right now it's only about 5% and the discount rate is maybe 5%. I would say there's probably no discount rate anywhere around here because we have such shortage of inventory and so many multiple offers that are happening. So as of right now, we're in a super hot market. Foreclosures are not flooding the market, are not affecting prices at all. And we don't expect that to happen anytime soon. We just have very, very little inventory. I mean, the very light blue that you see on the graph to the right, that is amount of active listings that are on the market right now. When you compare that to the last 3 years, we are at an all-time low and our inventory just keeps going down and down and down. This is really what's driving prices up because it's simple economics, right? Supply and demand. We need more listings. We really, really need more listings to stop prices from going up at such a quick rate. And this is just really shows it to you right here, how low that we are as far as active listings on the market. Again, hopefully that number changes later in the year. I just want to throw out there, since we have a big audience right now, that something that could shake up inventory a little, a reminder to everyone, Prop 19 is now in effect. You know, CAR spent a lot of money trying to get this proposition through to help loosen up inventory and to help get more properties on the market. It could happen and it could help us, but we all need to spread the word and make sure that people understand that if you are 55 and over, you can transfer your property tax base to your next home, and you can do it 3 times within your life. Before Prop 19, you were not allowed to purchase a home more expensive than the one you are in right now and transfer your property tax base. Now you can. The difference, in the amount that you sell for and the amount that you buy for, you're going to pay the full property tax base, but the amount that you sell for and below, you're going to be able to transfer your property tax base. So it's a great, great deal, a huge tax savings, and something that I think will help a lot of people feel more comfortable being able to move closer to family, move anywhere they want to within the state and be able to transfer that property tax base and not have to worry about a huge hit in that sense. So keep in mind, Prop 19, we need to spread the word and get that out there. Affordability is now deteriorating. When we did this talk at the beginning of the year, I was saying affordability is better than it's been in the last 4 to 5 years, because we were at this high point right here, right? So when you look back to 2016, it was a more affordable market than it is now. Now it's quickly going down. I'm sure all of you have heard stories of listings that are on the market that are at $800,000 for a single family home, and they're selling for $200,000 over the list price, and there's 20 offers. It's happening. Any single family home that's on the market right now around $1 million, expect it to go at least 100,000 over. It's just that sweet spot. Trying to get a single family home for under 1.2 is not easy to do. So those prices are just really being pushed up so fast, and that's what's bringing the affordability index down. Should we be optimistic about housing supply? This baseline is really what we need to have, and we're building so much less than we need to. We're hoping that 2021, this graph starts coming back up. Everyone that I've talked to at our state, as far as legislatures and local, they get that we're in a housing crisis and we need more housing built. There are a lot of bills that are coming through that are helping housing to be built at a quicker rate, at a more affordable rate, more density. Everybody wants this to happen. So I'm just hoping that the amount of housing that's built goes up, because we desperately need it. Otherwise, we're going to be living in cities that are so unaffordable for anyone to come here and move. And we need to have a balance of all different types of price ranges of homes in order to sustain a city where many people can live, to prevent people from having to drive 2 hours in to a city just to work and creating more traffic. And it's just not the exact type of city that we want. So we need more housing built. We're not doing nearly enough. The economy in LA County overall is great. We have so much job growth over the last 4 years, and we just don't have enough housing being built. Olympics are coming in 2028. We're on the track to continuing bringing in new great businesses, and we just need housing to keep up with that. So anything you can do to help us keep housing being built, please, please do. So now we're going to look at the forecast for 2021. We anticipate the number of homes to actually increase this year by 10%. We expect it to be a more active market than it was last year. Last year, we actually had a 3% increase. It was 3% more homes sold in COVID, the prime time of COVID, than they did the year before. How is that possible? It was just insane. And this year we expect 3 times that amount to happen. So an 11% growth in that. Median sales price, we had an 11% growth last year in median sales price. That means your home values went up 11%. This year, at the beginning of the year, we said, okay, maybe they're going to go up about 3%. Now that we're getting towards the middle of the year, we think it's getting a bit closer to 8. If the year continues the way it's going now, it may be higher than it even was last year. So let's keep watching that. Housing affordability index, unfortunately, that has gone down. We were at the highest point at the end of last year. And interest rates are low. I've been talking to a bunch of different lenders and their economists and what they're talking about at interest rates. Some of them have said, some of the real big companies have said that they think rates next year, by the middle of next year, second to third quarter of next year, maybe 4.5%. So that's a huge jump from where they are now. If that's the case, it will absolutely affect home values. So something we need to definitely keep watching. Interest rates are going to be, I think, the biggest driving factor in our market right now. So housing market, it's doing unseasonably well. It's just, you can talk to any realtor right now. They're busy. It's open houses are just allowed to start again. I'm doing my first open house tomorrow. I'm excited. And things are really busy. There's multiple offers on many properties. Condos seem to be selling slightly slower, not quite as many multiple offers as single family homes. We're still seeing that trend of getting a larger property and being willing to accept moving out into the suburbs or out of the downtown areas of the city in order to have more space. That's still happening. Again, I don't know how long that'll last, maybe through the rest of this year, but as things start opening up again, will we see more people move back into the city or not? I know a lot of my friends are able to continue to work from home indefinitely from their jobs, and that's going to be, also another thing to kind of watch out to see what properties are more popular and how that affects pricing. So that was my quick overview. Now we're going to get into a little more detail of the foreclosure and eviction moratorium, and specifically with talking about multifamily properties. So let's jump into that. Okay. So financial hardship obviously was seen throughout for so many people, and it caused a lot of people not to pay rent, and it led to a lot of renters not being able to pay rent. This kind of tracks back of what was happening throughout since the summer of last year. If you've been attending our series, we always survey people to see what's happening with rents and how many of their tenants are paying and are not paying. Will, do you want to maybe just chime in for a minute and say kind of where we were last year, where we're at right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a year ago, kind of around the height of COVID, right? Like right when things hit mid-March, April, excuse me. I would say that we saw about about 8 to 10% of our tenants not paying rent. May have even dipped into the 11%, a little bit over 10% at one point. As people started to get used to the new normal that we all kind of had to live through, that number started coming down, and we are now actually at pre-pandemic rates. We're just within our company, we're at about 1 to 2% delinquency, which is where we were at pre-COVID. I know others who are, most other companies are still in the 5 to 10% delinquency range at least. And that's in Los Angeles, of course. It makes sense to me that it's higher in some other places, depending on their job base, right? So there's obviously been also a lot of help from the federal and state governments on what's going on, and that's also starting to have an effect. Some of our tenants are applying for that as well.
Yeah. Okay. So it looks like things are getting better. More people are paying rent, but again, we're still in a position where we're still watching. We have an eviction moratorium set through the end of June, and I'm hearing a lot of people saying that it might be extended through the rest of the year, but let's see what happens there. So individual investors make up a majority of the landlords, and I think that's really something that we all need to really keep in mind, that a lot of times when we hear apartment owners or multifamily owners, sometimes we're thinking of these big corporations. And I know that this group that we have here, so many of you all are in this position where you own a few buildings, 1, 2, 3, 4 buildings. And a majority of multifamily owners in California and in Los Angeles, own one unit, a few of them own a few more. So it's a majority mom pop type of business. And a lot of those businesses really were hurt this year. And like Will said, thankfully, we're starting to see a little bit of relief finally for the owners, rather than just the tenants, and they have to kind of work together to make that happen. And I'm starting to see that myself as well. So this is a little interesting how landlords have been adapting to financial challenges caused by COVID. So this is, on the left is what happened last year, and this is what the landlord's predictions are. So you could see that deferred maintenance is going up this year. More landlords are saying they're going to defer maintenance now than they were before, but quite a few were saying that before because of the financial hardships that were going on. There's rent plans that are happening. However, if you look at the missed mortgages, it's only about 3%, right? And the other one that kind of stood out to me is like, were you going to be decreasing rent? 4% said yes now, and before it was about 5%. So some people are decreasing rent a little. I mean, nobody's really raising rent, but decreasing rent, a few people are. Another one that went up quite a bit was 14%. Of the people surveyed said that there's going to be more evictions, that they're planning to do some type of evictions for people who hadn't been paying rent. So we'll see how that plays out. And then this one is important. 9% of people now are considering that they might consider selling. Last year was only about 2%. So there's more of that sentiment of, you know what, am I going to keep this property? Should I sell it? Are we kind of at the height of the market? I mean, we've seen rental prices really drop over the last year. I mean, Will, do you want to chime in on that about how much? Like, I feel like over 20% in a lot of areas.
Yeah, rental prices, so in LA, it's a kind of interesting phenomenon where we have this inverse of what a lot of people assume rental prices should drop. Like generally speaking, in the country, the rest of the country, right? If you have what's called an A-class rental, which is a luxury rental, those are usually considered like less likely to go down because the people in that salary range did not tend to be as effective, and it would go down the opposite way. You would assume that like the higher the class, A, luxury class, B, after that, C, kind of more workforce housing, that you would see rents, slide per those classes. But in LA, it's inverse. It's very interesting because we've actually overbuilt our luxury housing, and the fact that we don't have like an economic base like San Francisco or New York, where there's enough people to fill that A-class housing. So actually, A-class housing has seen the biggest drop. That's where you're seeing the 20% drops. You go downtown, you go to Mid-Wilshire, those places, you're not selling one-bedrooms for $3,000 or more anymore. Because those places, the reason they could get those types of rents was because they provided amenities, right? They provided valet parking, they had a movie theater, they had a dog park, they had something like that. Those were all gone during COVID. So people were not renting those types of places. As you went down the classes, B class, C class, you still saw decreases, but much, much less. I would say like in B class, you saw about 10 to 15% drop. And in C class, kind of workforce housing, you saw very little. And that's because we've underbuilt our C class rental housing. So a lot of those, we hardly saw a drop, which is surprising.
Yeah. Okay, so you can see here too how the eviction moratorium has really affected landlords financially in a lot of ways. I mean, vacancy rates are much higher than they've been in the past as well. It's a little harder to rent properties. So the eviction moratorium remaining a concern, sales of rental properties have pulled back because people just aren't sure what's coming up and what's happening next, right? So let's talk for a minute, shift gears. So that was eviction moratorium. Now we're going to talk about foreclosure moratorium. So like we said before, delinquencies are already improving. The amount in forbearance is already improving and going down. That's definitely something we're tracking with our title people every other week, really. People who are in forbearance are still quite a bit, not as many as there was, in the past, but they are going down. This one is really interesting. Less than 1% of homeowners in forbearance have negative equity. So that's the bottom line right here. So less than 1% of homeowners that are in forbearance have negative equity. That means that almost everyone who's in forbearance has some equity. There's a way out. There's a way out for them. It doesn't have to be a short sale for a lot of these people. You know, and when you look up to 90 to 10%, it's only 6%, right? So it's still really, really low. There's a lot of equity because prices are going up. It's really has helped people a lot to be able to stay in their homes. So many people have been able to refinance, do some type of forbearance program, stay in their properties, keep their income properties, and not have to worry about selling them. So, you know, this is showing us back in the Great Recession and 2006 to 2010. A third of the mortgage homes were underwater, right? So a third of them had negative equity. And this is in California. It's very similar, right? 35 down to 29% had negative equity. And then people who had near negative equity. It was a huge, huge amount. Now, let's look at the country in California and where we're at right now. Negative equity share is so small compared to what it was in the Great Recession. California, it's only 1.3%. compared to a third before, 33%, right? So 2.8% is the average for the country right now. If home prices decline by 5%, the shares with negative equity would increase only to 3.3%. So a lot of people have equity in their home. Even if prices were to drop a bit, there's still quite a bit of equity that people have in their home. So if you're waiting for a massive amount of foreclosures to come on the market, it's probably not going to happen in California. And you know, if you want to look at the areas that are struggling the most, maybe Louisiana, maybe Oklahoma, Arkansas. But in California, you know, we're only at 1.3%. Again, multifamily owners as well have much more skin in the game. Much less people are buying with ARM products. They're buying, you know, more 30-year fixed. There's twice as many cash buyers as there were in 2006. Interesting. And the median down payment, you know, has also increased. So people have much more skin in the game now. Plus prices have gone up, so there's equity. It's a completely different game. We've, you know, heard this over and over again, and that's, you know, that's where we're at. If you're looking for foreclosures, the foreclosure moratorium, in short, basically, right, is not going to create a massive amount of foreclosures coming back onto the market at any point. There may be some, and it may be a slow rollout, but we have such a shortage of inventory that we need every property. It's not going to impact the market in such a way where great deals and prices are going to be coming out. So that's my summary of kind of where we've been, where we're at now, where we're going through the rest of this year. It's a very strong market. We expect it to continue like that through the rest of the year. Things to look out for: interest rates. That's going to really judge what happens with everything. If interest rates start to go up, prices are going to flatten out and slowly come down slightly, and we'll see how much that happens. So that's going to be a big indicator. Affordability, however, I believe is going to continue to go down next year. Even if prices were to go down and rates were to go up a little, it's most likely going to be more unaffordable next year. So overall, it's a great time to sell because we're kind of at that height of the peak. But it's also a good time to buy. It's kind of this weird market where you know, we have these rates that are going to possibly be changing, that are giving us an opportunity to have a great long-term investment. So whatever's working best for you and your portfolio or for your clients, you have a lot of options right now, and it's definitely a good time to consider doing something with real estate. So thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Will, and we'll continue on with our meeting, with our rest of our meeting. Thanks, everyone. If anyone has questions, yeah, feel free to type it.